Up until like the 50s and 60s, 92% of people born were going to do better than their parents. Wow. And now it's 49. And so the majority, and then for men, I think it's more like 40. So the majority of men, and then because of this kind of NIMBYist rejectionist culture, different talk show that makes housing more expensive, you have a lot of men at home. They're not doing as well as their parents were at that age. And there's just this feeling of shame and rage. And then, by the way, try and get a date. It's not a good rap. Oh, I live at home. That's not a good rap. So you get confirmation from dating apps, and you have constant reminders from your roommates, i.e. mom and dad, that you're failing. And so what do? Do you go into a hole and say, it's my fault, and turn on yourself? And some do that. But a lot say, I want answers. And they're very prone. If you look at the darkest moments in history, they all have one thing in common. They have an economic cohort of young men who are failing economically and want answers. And the easiest answer is, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. You're being unfairly persecuted because of this group that's taking your jobs, or this group that's coordinating against you, or women, whatever it might be, or the woke movement, whatever it is. It's not your fault. So they're very open to that. In addition, I think the content you're talking about, a lot of it's really good. A lot of it's very productive. I see some videos from Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate. And by the way, I shouldn't conflate the two, because I think Jordan actually has a healthier set of messages, and I think he calls on more science. But the majority of Andrew Tate's videos, I would say, are actually pretty productive. It leads to a dark, ugly place and a certain mentality around, I own women. And if I'm a real man, I'm going to put a woman in her place. And she doesn't ever go out without me. I mean, all this bullshit, right? And anyways, so the men are looking for answers, and they're very prone to nationalistic content. Once a man comes off the rails economically and emotionally and doesn't have a viable partner to kind of keep him in check, weird things. He's more likely not to believe in climate change. Mm-hmm. He's a lot more likely to have a gun. He's he's just more likely to embrace nationalistic content. In some, he becomes a shitty citizen. And if you look at the most violent, unstable societies in the world, they all have the same thing in common. They have a disproportionate number of young, broke, and alone men. And men become violent. I mean, think about mass shooters in the U.S. We know who they are before we know who they are. Mm-hmm. They're young men who haven't attached to school, haven't attached to relationships, haven't attached to work. And that's not to say that every young man who's an introvert is a danger. I'm not saying that. But I just don't think you can ignore that the most violent, dangerous societies in the world just have too many of this one individual. And also we have seen population rate decline. We're seeing less household formation. So I think when you're a guy and you feel this rage and this shame, you're looking for excuses that it isn't your fault, and you're looking for someone who offers you the answer and gives you a channel for your rage and says, it's not your fault, do these things, it's this person's fault. And you become very susceptible. I mean, this is Trump. Trump came into a group of people who had been overlooked and who were like, I've played by the rules. I've worked my ass off, and my life just isn't very good. And this is the guy who comes in, this is not your fault. It's immigrants coming over the border and taking your jobs. And, all this stuff, this blame game that happens. And I think men are especially susceptible to that message. So I think it happens over and over again in history. People don't want to look inward. They don't want to focus on self-improvement. They want to find someone who convinces them, says, this is how you get out, and this is a strategy. And I don't have a framework. I coach a lot of young men. The moment you say I'm up for coaching young men, your friends come out of the woodwork and saying, would you talk to our 19-year-old son living at home? I mean, they are everywhere, literally everywhere. And I don't have a framework, but I start with a very simple practice. I say, give me your phone, unlock it. I'm not going to judge you. And I look at their screen time. And I'm like, we're going to find 4 to 12 hours in your phone, and we're going to reallocate it. And we're going to write it down. We're going to look at Twitter. We're going to look at Coinbase. We're going to look at Robinhood. We're going to look at video games. We're going to look at porn. and we're on TikTok, you have no trouble finding 4, 8, 16 hours a week. I'm like, okay, first thing we're going to do, we're going to reallocate it into fitness. You're going to spend 3 to 5 hours a week, and I want you to get really fucking strong. And there's apps now that are free. It's certain minimum level of nutrition. When you're young, it's like you can get away with bad nutrition. It's more about moving and exercise. But I tell young men, you should be able to walk into any room and know that if shit got real, you could kill and eat everybody or outrun them. Like you either need to be really strong or really fast and really fit. And you can do that. At the age, if you're a 19-year-old, I don't know about you, but I look back on when I was 19, I can't get over how crazy strong and fit I was. I mean, it's a marvel. Yeah, it's a marvel. And to not embrace that, to not really enjoy it and get into it, you're going to be, and not only that, it's great for mental health. It's great. You make you feel more attractive. You feel more kind. You're less likely to get into a bar fight if you're big and strong. You're the guy that has the confidence to de-escalate the situation. You can step in and tell people acting like idiots to just calm down. So the first is fitness. The second is we're going to start making money. I don't care if it's flipping on a Dasher app or Uber or getting a job at a restaurant. You are going to start. The best way to get rich is to start by making a little bit of money because you get a taste for the flesh of money. And then the third thing we're going to do is we're going to join groups and organizations that give us random contact with strangers, softball league, junior college class, church, nonprofit, spending time at a food, anything, and try and find random contact and exposure to a bunch of strangers who are your age in the pursuit of something bigger than you. Meet people, make friends, meet people and ask them out to coffee that you think you might be attracted to. Whatever it is, get around strangers and try and do it every day. So it's fitness, it's starting to make a little bit of money, and it's getting in the company of strangers. And there's time. Give me your phone. I'll find the time, especially young men. They waste so much goddamn time. And then all I do the next week is I say, okay, I added up all this time and I got 12 to 14 hours across these 8 apps. Let's add it up again. Okay, you're off 3.5 hours. What did you do with that 3.5 hours? And just create a quick journal. I worked out. I spent a little bit more time. I got a job, whatever it might be. I'm like, that's it. It doesn't have to be complicated. I don't, there's some kids who I can tell are really struggling, and I think that they should reach out and do online therapy. It's pretty inexpensive now. And I think a lot of these kids, I'm not a trained adolescent psychologist, but sometimes I just feel like something going on here. This kid's really struggling. And I think that there's nothing wrong with reaching out to a professional. And parents are sort of loath to do that sometimes because they're worried they're just worried that they want to ignore it. They want to sweep it under the rug. And I'll say to parents, I'm like, I can't diagnose someone. I just get a weird feeling this kid's really struggling. And I think it would make some sense to reach out. Anyway, I don't have a framework. I'm just like, okay, fitness, get a taste for flesh, taste for money, and be in the company of strangers every day.